Elon Musk warns of a serious and excruciatingly difficult downturn that could last until spring of 24. The Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes, aimed at slowing down economic growth, have skyrocketed inflation to alarmingly high levels. Musk, along with tech enthusiast and ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood, fear that further rate hikes could lead to another Great Depression. With the global economy heavily dependent on low-cost money and stimulus measures, the disappearance of companies that should not have been operating in the first place is inevitable. The time for payment has come, and the storm of bankruptcies is upon us. Also, the Nobel Prize-winning economist has accused the Federal Reserve of being responsible for the current economic crisis in America. He further outlined a critical mistake made by the Fed that created this recessionary period in the country. So, warning of the looming economic recession, Elon Musk has argued that in order to prevent greater damage, the United States Federal Reserve must cease its interest rate hikes. At a meeting with Twitter employees, Elon Musk warned of an impending serious recession that could last up to 2 years. He further explained that he believes businesses should be prepared for the downturn and take necessary precautions now in order to protect their investments. The economic crash will be serious and its effects will not subside quickly. Thus, it's important that companies develop plans to address this upcoming financial challenge. The CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter spoke out about the troubling signs seen in recent mass layoffs. He recounted his own personal tribulations during the dot-com crash and financial crisis, remarking that it was an excruciatingly difficult process to maintain his business through these trying times, enough so to make him paranoid regarding possible recessions. For some time now, Musk has been cautioning with regard to the same issues, and even in his inaugural email to Twitter's personnel upon assuming ownership of the company. Frankly, the economic picture ahead is dire, especially for a company like ours that is so dependent on advertising in a challenging economic climate, he wrote. With inflation on the rise, the Fed is taking measures to slow down economic growth in order to stave off a potential recession and quell investors' apprehensions that began building up last year. Inflation skyrocketed to a sky-high 9.1% in June and has since remained at an alarmingly high 7.7% in October, far surpassing the Federal Reserve's desired goal of 2%. In order to counteract such danger levels, the US Central Bank raised rates from close to zero back in March up to 3.75% to 4%, with potentials for it peaking beyond 5% for the first time since 2007. Musk, who has echoed his worries regarding inflation to the public via Twitter, is not alone. Tech enthusiast and ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood corroborated Musk's stance with our own tweet that her team considers inflation cooling down, a claim which could potentially result in another Great Depression if further rate hikes occur. Exactly, Musk concurred, after Jeremy Siegel, a professor at Wharton Business School, strongly criticized the Federal Reserve for its overzealous stance on inflation in September. Musk tweeted his agreement. Siegel is obviously correct. On Tesla's third quarter earnings call in October, Elon Musk vociferously critiqued the Federal Reserve. According to him, Chairman Jerome Powell and his colleagues have been excessively raising rates instead of looking at future data more closely. What's more, he argued that they are too fixated on outdated numbers rather than forward-looking indicators. Also, the Tesla and SpaceX CEO warns that the world could be experiencing its longest recession since the global financial crisis more than a decade ago. When posed the question of how long this economic contraction might last, the world's wealthiest and most successful business person boldly declared probably until spring of 24. If this remains the case, then it would mean that the US gross domestic product will shrink for a longer span of time than during the 18-month recession caused by the Great Financial Crisis from December 2007 to June 2009, an unprecedented event in modern times. Though these downturns are agonizing, Musk suggested that they do have the constructive purpose of filtering out faulty business concepts by eliminating malinvestments from the market. During prosperous times, investments of low quality explode in the system as capital excessively pursues over decreasing returns, until the rewards are no longer worth taking on such high risks. When gauging whether to invest in a certain endeavor, investors must take into account the cost of money, as established by central banks around the world. The Federal Reserve, the most influential of these institutions, has been intentionally keeping interest rates low for some time, so as to prevent regular economic downturns. However, more recently, they have shifted back towards raising their rate again. It is no surprise then that since June 2009, the US economy has only once endured a short period of contraction, lasting 2 months, as declared by the National Bureau of Economic Research, the government agency responsible for determining when recessions begin and end. In response to the global financial crisis, policymakers have initiated remarkable stimulus measures into the system in order to avoid a recession. This stimulus comes primarily through trillions of dollars of newly created money and fiscal initiatives like corporate tax cuts and pandemic relief checks. With the current low-cost money climate, investors have been compensated for taking their capital and investing it in fledgling enterprises that promise to address significant social issues like Theranos or Nikola Corp, as well as imaginative concepts such as Juicero or Celsius. It's these types of companies that invariably suffer when access to inexpensive funds is no longer available. Recently, Nobel Prize-winning economist Douglas Diamond warned Fortune magazine that the US Federal Reserve's historic decision to keep interest rates low for so long has put the country at risk of an economic crash. In 2022, the Federal Reserve rapidly escalated its interest rate by 3 whole percentage points, significantly impacting asset costs ranging from stocks and housing to digital currencies. Even when policymakers were aware of the 8% inflation in early March that same year, they kept broadening their balance sheet, and with it raising the money supply. Elon Musk, one of the most influential figures in business today, recently shared his disapproval with Federal Reserve policies. His opinion aligns with Jeremy Siegel's, who, as a Wharton finance professor, declared that Fed policymakers have committed the greatest error since its foundation 110 years ago. Ironically, one of the major beneficiaries of the 2020's pandemic rally was a company that almost didn't make it through. Tesla CEO Elon Musk admitted at the height of the stock market bubble that his own business was on borrowed time and just about a month away from bankruptcy, had it not been for a decade-long period of ultra-low interest rates and monetary stimulus initiated by the Federal Reserve. For several months, the world's richest man has been sounding the alarm, warning that the economy risks a devastating recession if the central bank's monetary policy remains unchanged. The serial entrepreneur has made a fresh forecast as the Federal Reserve has its final monetary meeting of the year in the coming days, and, like his other forecasts, this one is highly concerning. To battle inflation, the Federal Reserve has boosted interest rates dramatically in recent months, pushing the benchmark rate from near zero during the epidemic to a level between 3.75% and 4%. However, many experts believe that the economy will enter a recession as a result of this strong monetary policy. On December the 13th and 14th, the central bank will convene for 2 days. Following 4 consecutive 75 basis point increases, authorities are projecting to boost rates by 50 basis points. In addition, for the first time since September, the Fed will issue quarterly predictions. This will offer hints as to where the Fed sees the US economy heading in the next few years. The CME Group's FedWatch continues to imply that next week's announcement will be a 50 basis point rate rise, raising the Fed funds benchmark to between 4.25% and 4.5%. With a target rate of 5% to 5.25% by the spring, which is already widely reflected in futures trade. Musk feels that if the Fed announces a rate rise as predicted, it will be a major mistake. He has just warned that the decision will send the economy into an even worse recession than it is currently projected. Elon Musk believes a recession is on the way and is concerned that the Federal Reserve's efforts to control inflation would exacerbate the situation. In a tweet, the Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Twitter founder Jack Dorsey urged the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates quickly or risk amplifying the chance of a catastrophic recession. The statements were made during a conversation with Tasmanian co-founder Vincent Yu, in which numerous others took part. Later in the thread, Northman Trader founder Sven Henrik observes that the Fed was too easy for too long, completely misreading inflation. He pointed out that now they've tightened aggressively into the highest debt constrict ever, without accounting for the lag effects of these rate hikes, risking they'll be late to realize the damage done. Musk replied saying, "Exactly. If the Fed hikes rates again next week, the recession will be considerably exacerbated," the billionaire declared on his Twitter account. The CEO of the electric vehicle company also agrees with star investor Cathie Wood, who continues to believe that sustained rate rises would lead to deflation, a risk Musk warned about in September. Wood wrote on December the 7th that the bond market appears to be indicating that the Fed is making a significant error at minus 80 basis points. As measured by 10-year versus 2-year Treasury rates, the yield curve is more inverted currently than at any time since the early 1980s, when double-digit inflation was entrenched. She said that in most cases, an inverted yield curve indicates a recession and/or lower than expected inflation. Deflation, in her opinion, is a far greater threat than inflation. Commodity prices and significant retail discounts back up this assertion. 2 days later, Musk responded to her in agreement. Peter Schiff, an economist, disagrees with the two. Schiff said in response to Musk's remark that actually the yield curve reflects market confidence that the #Fed will be successful in lowering #inflation down to 2%. Investors have made a mistake. The Fed's sole success will be to exacerbate the #recession, which will destroy the currency and send consumer prices skyrocketing. The spread between 3-month bills and 10-year notes is over 80 basis points, the widest since 2001, and a troubling sign of impending recession. According to a San Francisco Federal Reserve research, a prolonged inverted yield curve has preceded all 9 recessions in the United States since 1955, making it an extraordinarily accurate gauge of financial market mood. Last September, the entrepreneur predicted that a spike in jumbo interest rates would lead to long-term deflation. A significant Fed rate rise risks deflation, according to the SpaceX CEO. Deflationary repercussions can be disastrous for the economy, since falling prices encourage people to postpone purchase choices to await additional price decreases. This, in turn, might result in a decrease in general consumption and an increase in inventory of businesses that can no longer sell their products. They cut output and investment as a result. This isn't the first time Musk has warned of an incoming economic disaster. In a similar debate on October the 24th, the world's richest man predicted a worldwide recession would run until the spring of 24, although he admitted that he was just speculating. A prognosis came amid a barrage of economic warnings from other industry leaders, including Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, and Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon. The Fed looks to be nearing the end of a rate hiking campaign geared at combating inflation, which is still around its highest level in more than 40 years. The central bank has raised its benchmark rate 6 times this year, bringing the overnight borrowing rate to a target range of 3.75% to 4%, and is anticipated to increase it a couple more times before pausing. In those days, Fed officials have stated that they foresee lesser rises in the future than the 4 straight 0.75 percentage point increases, the last of which occurred in early November. Elon Musk has cautioned that an impending US recession appears worse than he thought, corroborating his proclamation to reduce 10% of salaried staff in Tesla. As the chief executive of the electric car maker, this is a worrying but necessary step for him and his business. Musk announced that Tesla is planning a 10% decrease in salaried staff, verifying the information stated in an internal email, as reported by Reuters. Tesla is reducing its salaried workforce by roughly 10%. Musk said at the event hosted by Bloomberg. The Tesla CEO declared that the organization would be expanding their hourly staff, yet cautioned it has expanded too quickly in some divisions as far as salaried individuals. Tesla currently employs close to 100,000 people, but according to Musk's estimates, the cuts will equate to approximately 3.5% of their salaried workers, a small fraction considering they are around 1/3 of the total workforce. On the other hand, Tesla is growing its hourly staff, which makes up 2/3 of their personnel, meaning that despite minor reductions in certain areas, overall numbers remain steady and could even go up in future estimations. Elon Musk shares a similar sentiment to other business leaders, such as Jamie Dimon, who cautioned that an approaching hurricane can be seen on the horizon. "A hurricane is right out there, down the road, coming our way," said Jamie Dimon. President Biden has echoed this feeling, declaring his belief that the United States won't enter into recession while they are yet dealing with surging gas prices and inflation rates at their peak in over 40 years. Additionally, the founder and CEO of Tesla declared that the economic recession could continue for as long as a year to 18 months via video at All In, a Miami technology conference hosted by the renowned podcast. At the conference, he proclaimed that recessions don't always have to be a bad thing. He drew from his personal experience, revealing how when booms persist too long, they can lead to capital misallocation and cascade rain upon those who are unwisely managing their finances. He then further emphasized that when this scenario gets out of control, it leads to a distortion in human capital allocation, which results in people engaging in activities that are not productive nor beneficial for their peers. Furthermore, he explained that companies producing ineffective products tend to go bankrupt, while those manufacturing useful goods are usually more successful. Musk went on to emphasize that if you are looking to create a successful business, it is important to ensure you have enough capital reserves. By managing your finances carefully and creating an effective product or service, success can be achieved. In the words of Musk, it is crucial for companies to have enough economic fortitude to sustain themselves during trying times. Elon Musk attributed the recession's cause to President Joe Biden and his current team. "This administration, it doesn't seem to get a lot done," Musk said. He then attributed the rising inflation in the US to White House policy decisions. He stated that a key cause of inflation is when the government releases more money than it has, which goes against the velocity of money. This leads to an exponential increase in currency, and thus causes prices to rise due to inflationary pressure on the market. This is not, super complicated, he added. The wealthy mogul has been quite adverse to the Biden administration in recent years. He criticized the White House's apparent disregard for Tesla by snubbing it from an electric vehicle summit, while praising General Motors and Ford instead. It's hard to tell what Biden's doing, to be totally frank, Musk said. This isn't the first time that Musk has predicted an upcoming recession. In 2021, he boldly declared that he expected a recession to occur within 2 years. Musk may not be an economist. However, he is hardly the only authoritative figure to have warned of a possible recession in recent times. Goldman Sachs chairman Lloyd Blankfein alerted CBS that there was a very, very high chance of one occurring, whereas Deutsche Bank's economists predicted it would reach America by 2023 due to inflation and escalated interest rates. Moreover, in May, Wells Fargo CEO Charles Scharf asserted that it would be nearly impossible to abstain from a recession, yet he doubted its seriousness. Shortly after this statement, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by 75 basis points to create a target range of 1.5 and 1.75%. This was the most significant increase in 28 years, as data sourced from the Labour Department revealed that consumer prices were at an all-time high, with annual inflation soaring at 8.6% in May alone. Despite the Federal Reserve's rate hike in early May, US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell stood firm that there were no signs to suggest a recession was near. Initially, he reassured reporters these fears were unfounded. However, shortly after, Powell seemed to reverse his stance on this matter and left many wondering what could be ahead for the economy. He asserted that whether or not we can succeed in a soft landing may come down to factors beyond our control, indicating Russia's attack on Ukraine and supply chain snarls could pose further issues. Research conducted by the Conference Board Business Research Group in May revealed that an astonishing 76.1% of CEOs believe they are either already experiencing or will before 2023's closure be facing a recession in their region of operation. This survey was completed mere weeks prior to the Federal Reserve's considerable rise in interest rates, heightening fears around a potential economic downturn. Just before the Federal Reserve's rate hike, Morgan Stanley's CEO James Gorman estimated that a recession was 50-50 in likelihood. This projection is significantly higher than his previous assumption of 30%. However, he assured that such an economic downturn wouldn't be deeply destructive or prolonged. While Elon Musk has been vocal about this potential circumstance, several other influential US business leaders have warned of an impending recession as well. That's it for today. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell.